Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Cassie. Cassie is a dear friend of mine. I think of her like a little sister. We met 6 years ago in early recovery. We were in the same online recovery group. She came in as a young person in recovery, and I admired her in so many ways just because of all the challenges she was facing and how vulnerable she was. She shares her story tonight. It is a wild story. You know, it's amazing to see her now thriving because of the darkness she had to overcome. She has a beautiful, transformative story, and I know you guys are going to love it. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Help me welcome Cassie to the podcast.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. I reached out to you to come on the show because me and you, we were just talking about before we jumped on, have lived like these parallel lives, very similar lives.
Yes. Yeah. And it's actually kind of crazy. You don't realize like how similar they are until you start talking about it. And then you're like, oh my gosh, are we the person?
Yeah. So me and you met 6 years ago when we were both baby sober. I mean, our sober dates are just a few months off. We were in the same online recovery group, Recovery Elevator Go. It was the Go group, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember talking to you, and because how the group worked is it was a Facebook group and you would post pictures and videos. And I remember thinking that you were so pretty and you were so young and you were like doing so well. And I was like, gosh, if I was her age, I would not be doing as well as her. And I admired you for how strong you were to be a young person in sobriety.
Oh, thank you. That means so much. Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of weird getting sober so young, because like your 20s, I feel like what everyone does, you're drinking, you're out partying, you're whatever, and getting sober, I think I was 29. So it was like right about to hit my 30s, and I don't know. I just feel like I went full force into it, and then here we are, and I'm like, I've never had a drink in my 30s, which is wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I just felt one of the reasons I was like so open about my recovery too is because I am so young, and I want other people who are young like me to see that it's possible. Yeah, I mean, why not just do it?
Yeah. I know when I've been on other podcasts and people ask me, well, do you have any regrets? And my only regret is that I didn't do it sooner, and I got sober at 34. I would have loved to get sober in my 20s, but you can't go back in time. Yeah. And then I followed your journey through nursing school, and we just talked about how your nursing career is taking off and you're doing all this awesome stuff. And I remember also following you about your fitness journey because you've been on this awesome fitness journey as well.
Yeah, I've kind of been off and on the fitness thing. I always have this like drive to try and get back into it. And it's just one of those things that I feel like, I was listening to some of your other episodes and you were talking about how like you basically have to change your beliefs about the thing so that you can just do it. And I feel like that's how I am with fitness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like still trying to change my like surrounding belief about it versus like I have to go do it, that I want to go do it. And so I kind of fall on and off of like, I'm going to run and I'm going to do all this. And then I like don't do anything. And then, it's just like this wave. But yeah. And then nursing, I wouldn't be a nurse if I wouldn't have gotten sober. So that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's awesome to be a nurse that's sober because it's such a stressful job. It's extremely overstimulating and emotional, and to be able to go through those experiences sober and not have to work hungover. You know what I mean? Because alcoholism is very prevalent in the medical world and nursing. So.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and we talked about too, before we jumped on, about how initially you worked on a liver transplant floor, right? And kind of give us that experience.
Yeah, I didn't realize how prevalent like alcohol was, especially as a nurse, like as that like career, how many nurses like drink to cope with all the things that they're dealing with day to day. And then I guess I just didn't realize like the extent of what alcohol can do to somebody. And so like for me going in, I trying to finish my degree and become a nurse, I was working in a kidney transplant center. So it was a liver and kidney transplant clinic, and I was mainly on the kidney side. So I basically just helped people get on the wait list. And then when I became a nurse, I transferred over to the inpatient side for that same clinic, just doing bedside nursing. And I saw a lot more of the liver side, which I wasn't really exposed to before. And the main thing with that is like, one, I didn't realize how prevalent it is. 90% of our patient population was dealing with end-stage liver disease. I also didn't realize how horrible that actually looks. What people actually look like when they're suffering from end-stage liver disease. You know, they're so confused. They're not even, woo woo, not even there. You know, you have tubes coming out of every place, and it's not pretty. And it's basically one of the biggest reasons that I think I was able to stay sober too through my first year of nursing, because I was seeing all these people in this place that I very well could have been in. And I was like, I don't want to be like that. That's not life. That's not quality of life. And it was also very hard because I'm on this other side where I am sober. And I'm like, I have seen this other way of life, and it is possible for you too. But there's this fine line we walk as nurses where I can't tell you how to live your life. I have to just kind of lead by example. And also, how do you tell that to your patients? You kind of have to find this like balance where you can say, maybe, you know, there is another way, you know, I have experience, and like you have to be very careful about how you go about it, right? And so it got very hard for me because I'm sitting here watching people in their early 30s, which is how old I am, literally dying day to day from alcohol. And I was like, I have to make a change. Can't keep doing this type of nursing. It was just very hard mentally to like watch other people go through that, knowing that I can only do so much to help. You know what I mean? So now I do dialysis, which is a whole nother world, and I love it.
Yeah, I'm just putting myself in your shoes. I've only ever done like labor and delivery, and then I do primary care now. But for me, being in that environment would be extremely triggering. I definitely could not do it. Just seeing what my life could have become, I would be on fight or flight all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as a new nurse too, you're already in fight or flight. I
True.
was walking in to work every day with this monumental amount of anxiety of what am I going to walk into? Is someone going to be like coding on my shift? Am I going to get the person who's swinging their walker around trying to take all their stuff off? You know what I mean? That just nursing is crazy. And so I went a whole year of doing night shift and walking into that every day, not knowing what I was going to get into. And I was like, this is really not good for me. I should not be walking into work with this anxiety that makes me want to throw up every day. Just can't. It's not healthy.
But it's interesting when you're a new nurse, you don't know any different. I thought that's what nursing was to be in fight or flight. I did bedside nursing for 10 years, and I didn't realize how stressful it was until I left and saw the other side of nursing. And I was like, why did I do that to myself for 10 years? I learned so much, but you could not pay me to go back to that.
Yeah, it's same. Exactly. I knew going through nursing school, like you kind of go through all your clinicals and you know, see mental health rotation and you see L&D and you see whatever, and you kind of pick things out where you're like, I could probably do that. I definitely know I'm not an ER nurse, you know, like from the jump, not me. But then when you like really get into a job and you're doing it every day, you're kind of just like holding on for dear life and then just getting through it, like literally 1 hour at a time. And then now that I'm out of it, I look back and I'm like, I don't know how I survived, number one. And it actually, like, you could see, especially with night shift, like, it takes a toll on your body. And I've, like, lost a bunch of weight. I wasn't taking care of myself. There was no fitness. There was sleeping and maybe eating some junk food, you know what I mean, and working. And now I'm like, as soon as I got out of that role and I've transitioned to this one, I gained all the weight I lost. So I'm healthy now. And, you know, I'm sleeping better. I have anxiety occasionally, but not as bad, you know? And so like, you just see your life like transform and you get out of that and you're like, wow, I didn't realize like how much that affected me until you're out of it. And then you're like, okay, not doing that again.
And I think we could even, to play devil's advocate, there are some people that thrive in that type of chaos. There are some nurses that are type A, whatever you want to call it, that do really well in those high stress situations. I was not one of those people. I got my job done. I did a good job, but I thrive in a more controlled work environment, you know?
Me too. Yeah. There are definitely, I feel like those people are like the ER nurses of the world, or like, you know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like adrenaline junkie kind of people. And
Yes.
I am not that person.
Yeah, exact same girl. I am to a degree, but not when it comes to work, you know?
Yeah.
Well, we are going to start our episode out with a quote like we do each time. And the quote for your episode is from Fort Wayne Recovery Center. And the quote goes, "Every sober day is a quiet rebellion against the chaos that once controlled you." What does that quote mean to you?
You know, I actually, after you sent that, I was like, oh, I really love that quote. And then I was thinking about it more this morning and I was like, I feel like that describes my life because a lot of my like drinking and my story revolved around rebellion. And now in my recovery, I feel like I'm like rebelling against the fact that I like rebelled. So I love it because I'm always trying to build a life I don't want to escape from. And I feel like that goes hand in hand with not going back into that chaos and just building this life that's amazing. It's a different sort of rebellion now. It's empowerment, I guess, is the best way I could describe it. But I just love that quote.
Yeah, that was a really good way to describe it. I agree with you. When I read this quote, it brings up the whole topic that sobriety is actually an act of rebellion, especially in the world that we live in where it's put on such a pedestal. It's almost like a big F you, like middle finger to society in a way. And that little rebel in me loves that. Like I track with that. I thrive in that type of rebellion. Everywhere you look, subliminal messages, advertising, TV, movies, parties, you have to drink. It's life elixir. It makes everything better. And I'm over here telling you, no, it doesn't. It does the opposite of that. And you can live an amazing life in sobriety and be a little bit of a rebel at the same time.
Right, exactly. I love the way you said that too, because it's like, it is so prevalent, and especially in people my age and the things that we're doing with our lives. And, you know, it just, you see it all the time. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to go the way that everyone else is going.
Yeah. Well, and I love watching you because you recover out loud, which is another act of rebellion, right? I love that you do that. And you live an amazing life. I mean, you're always doing fun things. You have beautiful pictures. You're traveling. You're going to concerts. You're going to shows where alcohol is so prevalent, but you're like living your best life and you're waking up feeling great the next day, you know?
Yep. And I mean, for the most part, like sometimes I'm still waking up really tired because I was up till 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
But like I'm still doing it where I'm not spending the whole next day just in bed. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I'm out there having fun and remembering it and connecting with other people who are doing the same thing that I'm doing it sober and going to shows and going to see concerts and stuff. And so like that's been a huge part of my recovery now, which is crazy. It's crazy. I'm like, if you would ask me 6 years ago if my life was going to be like it is now, I'd be like, you're crazy.
Well, we're so excited to hear your story. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
I grew up in suburbs in Parker, Colorado. Definitely suburbia. We had great parents. I have a half sister. My life was really good. When I first started picking up like any sort of drug or alcohol or whatever, I think I smoked my first cigarette when I was like 12. You know, it was just like almost like boredom. We were like, what are we going to do to, liven up the space? So I think I picked up alcohol when I was around probably 12 or 13. It was like middle school-ish. We would sneak out. We're like always trying to, it was like an act of rebellion. I also kind of felt like I didn't really fit in with like certain crowds of like people. And so when I got into middle school, it was like, well, I know I can fit in if I rebel. And so I started hanging out with people that wanted to drink or smoke weed or whatever it was, and I just followed suit with that. And I think growing up and going through high school and middle school and like being in that kind of crowd, I tended to get in a lot of trouble. So I think freshman year I got suspended for drinking on the school bus on the way to school because we would steal alcohol and put it in a Propel bottle and we would start drinking on the way to school, and one of the other girls that was on the school bus told on us and we got suspended. And then it was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna rebel more because I got grounded and whatever. And I got a few in possession tickets and curfew tickets, and that was my whole high school career was like, we're gonna smoke pot or we're gonna go party in a parking lot somewhere, like get drunk in the skate park. And I don't know, that was just like what we did, and I thought it was like a normal thing to do. And then fast forward a little while, I went to school up in Steamboat Springs, tried to do college, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. So I was like, I'm just going to get a degree in ski and snowboard business. What I'm going to do with that, I don't know. And I instead was taking random classes that didn't go with my degree at all. And I was just partying a lot because it's a mountain town and there's not much else to do. And I got another, I think, minor in possession ticket up there. And I'm like, nothing, like, this isn't really changing, like I'm just doing the same thing I did when I was in high school. And then I ended up moving away from Steamboat, which was probably a good thing because it got me out of that like small town vibe where you're just like spending all your time drinking or partying. And then I came back down to Denver, Colorado, and I was like, I'm gonna try healthcare out. So I worked in healthcare for a while, but I wasn't like still sure like what I wanted to do with my life. And then eventually I took a position where I was kind of working more with patients on the back end, but I wasn't like a nurse or anything, kind of like an MA, but for eye care. And then through that, I was like, you know what? I think I want to go back to college and become a nurse. And I think that time in my life, there was a lot of things going on outside of like my career and what I wanted to do. And I was living in a house at the time that basically like there was 4 of us. I was with me and my best friend, who I also worked with, her boyfriend, and his best friend. So we called ourselves like a little family. And we had lived together for probably 2 years at this point. We were work hard, play hard. So we would like go to work, we'd show up, we were functional, and we'd come home, and on the nights and the weekends, we would binge drink and we'd get up and, do it all over again the next day. And then we did that for a while and it was working. Things were going okay. Probably not as good as they probably could have been, but 2017, my best friend's boyfriend, his name is Brett, he went on a family trip. They do like a golf trip every year in Michigan, I believe it was. And he ended up going out on a kayak at night after he had been drinking all day golfing. And I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know that we'll ever know what happened exactly, but he ended up passing away. And we think he drowned of some nature. We just don't know how. And that like wrecked all of us, because we had been living, we were like best friends, like, and, so it was a really hard time. But at that moment, like, I felt like I had to kind of be like this, like, pillar, I guess, where I was like holding my best friend and his best friend, like, after he had passed. And we were doing a lot of drinking, but I was still functioning and going to work and just trying to like be there for them. And things got really, really, really rough, like, after that happened. And there were some things that like went down with the 3 of us that I was like, I should probably like move out. I should get out of this situation. Because they were drinking very heavily and I was kind of still on this like edge of like, I can moderate, like I'm fine. I don't want to be around, like, this is like heavy, heavy drinking. Like, I don't want to be around this anymore. And so I moved out. And what's interesting is I fell off the wagon after I moved out. And I think I ultimately, like, looking back now, I feel like I just like felt like I had to hold them up for so long that I could never grieve. And then once I did move out, I was like, okay, like I can grieve now. And I just like went deep dark into my drinking at that time. And so I just like finally like let myself feel it all. And I was like, I'm just gonna drown myself in alcohol because I don't know what else to do. I don't have any healthy like coping mechanisms. And so I did that for a while. I then quit my job because I was working with her at the time. And so after that, I got a new one. And then I was like deep into this drinking where I was like, I'm so hungover because I drank Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and then Monday would roll around and I'd be so hungover I'd call out of work. And I would do that on Tuesday and on Wednesday and on Thursday. And then by, Friday, they're like, okay, you can't work here anymore, And so I ended up losing a job. And then that was probably like around, I want to say like February 2018-ish. And so then I'm not working and I have all this time on my hands. And I'm just like, I think they say the devil's hands are idle or something. There's like some quote about that where like if your hands are idle, you're more likely to like get into bad things. And so I ended up drinking more. And then it was kind of getting to the point where I was like drinking 24/7. And it would be like, get up, have a couple beers throughout the day. really hit it hard in the afternoon, evening, and then go to sleep. But I would be like taking beers into my bedroom and hiding them because I lived with my parents at the time. And so I would like take them in my room for later, try to go to sleep, mainly just be like passing out, and then wake up 2, 3 in the morning, crack open a beer or two to like calm all the anxiety and like everything that's happening on the inside, go back to sleep, and then just like wake up and do it over. And there came a point in like March where I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I was like in this space where I was like, I didn't really want to live, but I also was like terrified of dying. And it's such a hard thing to explain, but like alcohol is one of those drugs that like you should be scared of the withdrawals because they can kill you and they are dangerous and they cause seizures and things like that. And I knew a lot of that from going through nursing school at the time. This was like very early nursing school days. And I was like, I almost know too much. And I just feel like if I quit drinking that I'm going to die. But I'm tired of feeling like shit. And I'm tired of doing this cycle of just like waking up and drinking and going to bed. And so there was a day where my dad came into my room. It's like 1 in the afternoon. And he was like, what's going on? Because he had seen me basically just be drunk out of my mind for 4 or 5 days in a row, like on a bender. And he's like, you haven't come out of your room and it's 1 p.m. What is going on? Like, what do we need to do? You know, whatever it is, like, we'll be there and we'll help you. And I looked at my dad and I was like, I think I need to go to detox. Like, I don't know how to quit alcohol and like, I'm terrified. And so he took me to the ER and I don't remember exactly, like, I think they might have given me an IV or something. It wasn't anything crazy, but they basically just held me in there until I went to detox. And detox, I don't know if most people know, but it's kind of like, at least my experience is like, you go and it's like the drunk tank for everybody. It's not like where you go to rehab and like everyone kind of wants to be there because they want to be there. It was like people who got DUIs or like were out doing drunken disorderly or whatever it is. Like everyone just gets thrown into this detox where I went anyway. And so I was terrified because I had never in my life imagined I would be in a situation like that. And basically they were like, because I was there on my own volition, they were like, oh, you're going to be here until you blow zeros. Longer if you choose to, but usually about 3 to 5 days. But it's up to you, kind of when you decide that you want to be out of here. I'll never forget just like being in that detox that night and just like thinking like, how did my life get to this point and feeling like crap. I was prescribed some sort of benzo. I can't exactly remember which one it was, but to kind of help with like the tremors and the withdrawal symptoms. And I stayed in there for about 20 hours and then I blew zeros and everything. And they were like, you know, you're good to go if you want to go. And I was like, yeah, I'm out of here. Like, this is terrifying. And so my dad picked me up and I was like really gonna try. I was like, I want to be sober, but I don't know how to do this. And I knew my mom had kind of stopped drinking for a little while at that point, and she was living in Arizona. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to Arizona. So I basically got out of that detox, and within 3 or 4 days, got rid of a bunch of my stuff and moved whatever I could into my car and moved to Arizona. And so I'm like still kind of going through withdrawals and, you know, just like the early days of sobriety where all you're thinking about is alcohol and how like you just want to like drink but you don't want to drink. And I'm driving 12 hours in my car by myself and just like white knuckling it the whole way there because I'm like, I just need to get out of the situation that I was in. I need to get out of Colorado because that's where I've done all my drinking. And so I moved to Arizona and it was great. I wasn't there for very long, but it was kind of like this geographical cure is what they call it. And I did like fall on and off. Like I think I went 3 weeks and then I had a beer or two. And then I went another 2 months. And then my mom was kind of like, you know, I think I'm going to move to Texas to be closer to family or whatever. And I was like, I'm not moving to Texas. I'm going back to Colorado. And I don't know what happened, but it was like as soon as I got back into Colorado, I started drinking. It was like, give me a White Claw, I'm ready to go. And that summer, this was 2019 by this time. That summer, I just like fell hard and fast. And I think that's why like you'll see a lot of people say like it's so dangerous to go back out once you've gotten sober because you're like, you had this underlying thought of like, well, I might not ever get to do this again. So I should just try and cram in as much as I possibly can while I can. And so you'll see people like drink a lot more, or they'll do a lot more of the drug. And sometimes your tolerance has changed. And so you don't realize like how much you're actually like, how little and how big it like affects you. And so that summer I was like probably the craziest I've ever been on alcohol, like just drinking constantly and not really working like a good job. I wasn't really doing school. I had put nursing stuff on hold at that point. And I finally got like a job that wasn't Planet Fitness or some, whatever it was. And I was working and I was like kind of getting into that same habit where I would drink on the weekend and then hit Monday morning and be like, I feel like crap. And so then again, lost another job because I was like not getting my shit together and calling out of work all the time. And I was living with my dad again, and I was like kind of feeling that same, I was feeling like I was in that same place I was previously, where I was like, I can't get out of this cycle and I need outside help. And so it was like a Thursday, it was August 29th. That was the last time I had a drink. And I went into my stepmom's office because she worked from home. And I was like, can you please take me to the hospital? I think I need to go through detox again. And she was like, absolutely. So she dropped whatever she was doing and she took me to the ER, and I went to the detox again. And I was like thinking to myself, like, I can't believe I got myself into this situation again. Like, I swore I never wanted to go back to this place. And it was really hard to like be in that scenario again and just thinking like, man, I've failed. Like, what have I left my life? It's just like shambles, and I just don't know how I got here. Alcohol has so much control over me. So I ended up going through detox. I wasn't there for as long because I hadn't drank as much. And so like the day before or whatever, and it was kind of the same premise, like below zeros, you can get out of here. So I did about a day in detox again. And then after that, I was like, I really need to find some sort of outside help to keep me on this path of sobriety. Because when I tried it the first time, I wasn't really connecting with people. I didn't try AA, like I had no community. And so I think that's why I ended up off the wagon. And so this second time through detox, I was like, I've got to find something. And so I ended up moving, but not crazily like the first time. I just moved to Arvada with my step-parents, and they were a really great resource for me because my stepmom, I have a lot of parents. It's a whole thing to try and explain my whole family tree. But anyway, so my stepmom was actually, she grew up with Paul Churchill, and he is the creator of Recovery Elevator podcast and Cafe RE. And so once I had moved in, she was like, hey, like, there's this community that I know about. Like, I'm happy to pay for your first month. I think it's like however much a month or whatever. And he has a great podcast and you should just check it out. Like, I'll pay for your first month if you'd be interested. And I was like, sure, why not? And that's how the whole recovery elevator thing took off for me, because I was like, just kind of thrown this like, here, you should try this. And the only reason I knew about it was because she knew him growing up. And so I got into the group, and that was one of the best decisions I ever made. My first, I think, year and a half-ish to 2 years was mainly RE. All I did was attend their online meetings and, read recovery books and all of that stuff. I didn't really do AA until a long time after that. But yeah, I don't know. Ever since then, like, that's what helped me kind of get on this path. And now I do a lot of different things for recovery. But the big thing, that turning point, was getting into that community and having something that was outside of myself to really plug into. So yeah, that's kind of like the big overview.
Wow. No, I love your story so much. I've heard your story because I've listened to you on another podcast, on Paul's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember listening to it. I think you did it maybe when you were 2 or 3 years sober, but it made me cry. I mean, it's such a beautiful story because of how deep you were in addiction. I mean, you were very deep into it at a very young age. We can all see where that trajectory would have gone. It's, dramatic, whatever to say, but I don't know that you would have made it out alive if you had kept on that cycle, which is a very scary thought. But to see you now, like, thriving, I mean, you just have so much light in your eyes and so much like hope. You don't know, you have hope and like a drive, ambition. I can see it in you. And I feel like you were given a second chance on life,
Yeah, and I absolutely feel that same way because I've seen it now, with my previous job of nursing in the liver transplant side of things, and I've seen that, and that very well could have been me. I
Hmm.
absolutely would have been on that same path if I would have not changed my trajectory. And so I do feel very grateful to have this life, and that's why it's so crazy to think about. Wow, 6 years ago, I would not have been where I am now, which is
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. So that first year, ultimately, I think what got you sober was one, not trying to do it alone, two, realizing that you weren't alone. There was other people struggling like you, and then having the accountability, right, of the group. What else would you say helped that first year? Because so many people fall off that 12 months. So what else kept you sober that first year?
I think the like you said, accountability is huge. And I think the more that you can get like out of yourself, like for me, I just like stopped holding everything in. And that was like a big problem as to why I drank. I just bottled all this stuff up and just never talked about it and just like dealt with it on my own, which clearly did not work. And so going through that first year, like I look back on it and I'm like, I was constantly checking in with people. I was talking to someone in recovery every day. I listened to a lot of recovery podcasts. I read probably more books than I can even count on self-help or recovery or alcoholism or whatever it was. And so I just kind of fully immersed myself with all things recovery. It was also right before COVID. And so I feel like this was also a blessing and a curse because the first like probably 6 months of my sobriety, I still had that opportunity to like go out and see my friends or whatever it was, but I had to really limit myself on what I did with them. And it was nothing against my friends. They're amazing people and they've supported me, 100% of the way. But I just had to set boundaries for myself. Like I knew that once the party hit a certain limit, it was time for me to go because I would get triggered or whatever. I made rules around like I always drove myself places so that I had an escape. And I just kind of like, set those boundaries basically. And then COVID hit and I was like, wow, I don't really have to have these boundaries anymore because I'm not going anywhere. So it was kind of like a blessing in a way because I was like, I don't have to go out and be a part of these social situations. I can really just work on myself and take that time. But also, it's very isolating. So I went more headfirst into Recovery Elevator at that time because it was like, what else are we going to do? I should just connect with my people. So I was on online meetings all the time. And so, yeah, like it was kind of lonely, but at the same time, I feel like getting sober right around that time was the best thing that could have happened to me because I don't know what it would have looked like if I didn't. And it kind of really gave me that time to just focus on working on myself, which I think
Yeah.
was what I needed.
I remember you that first year because we were in the same group. And so I admired you because a lot of people, when they first get into sobriety, will have what's called the pink cloud, which is everything is amazing, everything is great because their lives were unmanageable and horrible, right? And then they get sober and things start to go well. And it's like you just feel so happy that one, you survived and that life could be as good as it is. And you had probably somewhat of a pink cloud, but then I remember you were struggling. You would always be very open and honest about your struggles on the online group. And I remember you reached out to me and you were like, let's start texting every day or every week. And me and you like helped each other stay accountable that first year. I remember we would like check in with each other.
Mm-hmm. And we
Yeah.
were all like, I don't know if you got into the Marco Polo thing, but man,
Yeah.
we were using that app like it was hotcakes. Like we were just all always video chatting each other through that, which is actually kind of like, I'm glad we had that app when we did because it kept you like doing the face to face, but you didn't have to be on a meeting at this exact time. You could just like kind of do it when you had time, which was really nice. But yeah, I mean, like keeping that connection, I think, with people is so key because otherwise you do feel like you're alone and you're
Yeah.
not.
What's great is now in 2025, we have so many avenues, so many sober groups, so many online groups, so many in-person groups for people to get sober, which is awesome. And I want that to keep growing. I wanted to ask you during the last 6 years, now you're in long-term sobriety now, what has been the hardest challenge?
I think just like battling with myself still, you know what I mean? Keeping myself accountable. There's a lot of things. My life has changed a lot. And even from when I last shared my story on a recovery podcast, like you said, I think that was 2 years-ish sober, and my life has changed drastically even since then. And so trying to keep up with all these changes has been beautiful, but also hard. And so I think, just having that check in with myself of, is this really what you want to do with your life? And just keeping myself on that constant path of growth and progression. It's difficult, but it's beautiful in a way. So I think that's like the biggest challenge is just, hey, you got to do stuff for your recovery still. You can't just, sit idly by.
Yeah.
So,
The idle hands are the devil's playground. I think that's how the
yes,
quote goes.
thank you.
Yes.
I'm like,
So
I know the quote, it's in
you were
there.
so close. I kind of wanted to comment, when you were sharing your story about being really young. I mean, you were super young. I was too when I started drinking. Essentially, when I hear you tell it, it sounds like it became your identity very young and you didn't really have a lot of healthy coping skills. And this became your identity. Well, I'm a drinker. I'm a drinker. And that's probably what fueled all of it. And then now in recovery, you now have this new identity of a sober person, a sober baddie, really. So what are all the cool things that you're doing now in recovery? Because I know you're doing lots of really cool things. I wanted to hear about that.
Yeah. And what's funny? So, like, just to kind of start that whole little section off, one of my best friends recently told me, she was like, I feel like this is the most authentically you I've ever seen. This is who Cassie is. And I didn't like realize that that's like kind of what I had built until she told me that. And I was like, you're right. Like, I do really feel like most myself now. But yeah, I mean, my personality, like, when I was drinking, like, I'd be like, yeah, I can drink any boy under the table. Like, that was my identity. And now I just like exude, I guess, sobriety. Like, I have it all over everything. I constantly say, like, I'm a sobriety warrior. Like, I want to push this like narrative of this is how your life can be. So anyway, one of the things that I really do now that's huge, is a really big part of my recovery, is I obviously love live music. I have been following the same band since 2009, so it's been like 16 years. They're called Pretty Lights. And they have kind of become a little bit more of like a jam band in recent years, but they're like electronic music. It's really hard to describe what they are. You just kind of have to check their music out to really understand it. But a big thing in the jam band scene is yellow balloon groups. And so bands like Fish have yellow balloon groups. Theirs is called The Fellowship. And basically what they do is they come to the show and it all started with a yellow balloon. And basically they'd be like, if anyone's sober or needs help or support and wants to come chat, go look for the yellow balloon. And so it's this way where people in recovery can still go see their favorite bands and music, but have that support there. And through my time following this band Pretty Lights around, that was never really a thing. Until recent years, in 2023, we created the group. It's called the Yellow Birds. And basically, we are the sober fans of Pretty Lights. And what we do is we go around to each show and we have a table that's set up there. And we basically just offer sober support to whoever needs it. And we do a set break meeting. And so they'll play set one. People will come to our table during set break. We'll do a really quick, like 20 to 30-minute meeting, just kind of like checking in. People will talk about their struggles or whatever it is they need to talk about. And then we go back and watch set two. And it's one of the most incredible things I've ever been a part of. And I kind of helped a little bit, like, it started out as a Facebook group, and I was just like moderator. And now I help lead the group and I help plan events and organize volunteers to be at the different tour stops. It's wild. I'm taking one band that has been a huge part of my life and who I have loved for years and years, and then combining that with recovery, which is also such a huge part of my life, and putting them together. It's just an incredible experience. And like knowing that we help people, like we've had people come up, because we have tour stops, so we'll have someone who comes up at 1 earlier on in the tour and they're struggling and they're like, I really need help. I feel like I'm going to drink or whatever it is. And they talk to one of our volunteers or me or whoever it is. And then 3 months later, we'll see them at another tour stop and they're like, I'm still sober and I'm here because of you guys. And if you would have never stopped and talked to me that day, I don't think I would have made it. And it's those moments that you're like, that is what we're here for. Like, that's what this is all about. And so it's just been truly incredible to be a part of that group and just see where it's taking people and how it's helping and it's growing. And so that's mainly what I've been doing now for my sobriety, which is wild. But and then I do meetings here and there. We do an online like weekly Zoom meeting with that group, and then I connect with other fans of live music and help them through their journey and stuff like that. Not as much into like the RE thing anymore, but journeys change and evolve, and I think it's beautiful to be able to like have different aspects that get you along.
No, absolutely. I love what you're doing now. You've combined two passions, your love of live music and sobriety, and then being a space, a safe space for people who still want to enjoy shows, but know that they can have this avenue. I have never heard of that before, the Yellow Balloon, the Yellow Birds. That's super cool. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think some even sports have kind of gotten into that as well. I know for sure the Green Bay Packers has like a whole sober section in their stadium specifically for people that they can buy tickets to that section and sit with other sober people because alcohol is everywhere. So
Hmm.
having those little niche spots that people know they can go and still enjoy football or live music or whatever it is and have a space to be supported and connect with other people who still want to do those things. I can still have just as much fun in recovery and go to music and see all my favorite bands and connect with people who want to do the same thing and who don't want to be trashed the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
I love that. I would love to see that in the country music scene. I went to a Chris Stapleton concert. It was actually my first sober concert because it was, they didn't do a lot of concerts during COVID. It was probably
Hmm.
2021. And it was such an amazing show. Me and Chris connected, right? I was in the lawn at Verizon, the place in Alpharetta. While me and Chris were connecting, everyone in the lawn was wasted, girl. I mean, like falling down drunk, fighting, screaming, yelling. I remember leaving the event and it was like a sea of zombies. And I was like, well, I had the most amazing experience. Surrounding me is just complete chaos, you know? I would love to see it infiltrate that world.
And I hope it does. I feel like in our society now, being sober, sober curious, or whatever it is, becoming a lot more popular. I mean, you see that a lot with all the NA mocktails or NA beers or whatever it is that is coming onto the scene. I don't want to go as far as saying like it's becoming normalized because I don't think we're there yet. But I do think this stuff is starting to seep into different areas. And so maybe country music is the next,
Hmm.
area that it'll seep into, which would be really, really great.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Also,
think
I'm really jealous you saw Chris Stapleton. So,
oh, he's amazing. And then I saw Tyler Childers last summer at the same event center who's sober, which Chris
mhm,
Stapleton is too, but he's not very public about it. Tyler
right.
Childers is. And he even said before the show started, he was like, do not get drunk in my lawn. do
Yeah.
not, do not ruin this experience for all the people around you. Respect my sobriety. And the whole vibe was different because he set that tone and it was an
Right.
amazing show as well. And I also think going back to what you were saying about, normalizing quote unquote the movement, which I'm here for, I think a lot of that has also been from the Surgeon General coming out in January saying that alcohol is carcinogenic. It's a direct cause of breast cancer, esophageal cancer, liver cancer, colon cancer. I feel like that a Surgeon General coming out and saying that has really helped kind of transform the narrative as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's literal poison, and for so long it's been pushed down our throats of like, this is what everyone should do, and like buy our alcohol and make us money and whatever it is. And so I do think it's important that people in those positions start to change that narrative because when that's not happening, how is everyone else going to follow suit? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I feel like the younger generations growing up, like my sister, she doesn't really want to drink. You see it more and more. I think now, like these younger generations are like, I'm good. They're traveling or whatever and not drinking. So,
Part of me wonders it's because they've seen us, the generation above them struggle with it so much,
mhm.
because we didn't have that informed consent. We didn't know it was bad for you. We thought it was good for you. Doctors told us it was good for our heart,
Yeah,
back
wine,
then.
one
Yeah,
glass of wine is good for you.
it thins your blood, whatever they said. But yeah, last question before the lightning round. Over the past 6 years, what has been your biggest blessing in recovery?
I would say this whole life. I mean, seriously, I am so grateful to be where I am today. I would not have all the things that I have. I would not be a nurse. I would not be getting to see live music as much as I do. I would not be able to travel. None of these things that I am able to do now would be possible if I wasn't sober. So I just think like overall the biggest blessing is just being able to live this life and like have these opportunities. And then also just like all the people that I've met along this journey. Like I said, connection is key. So like making all those amazing friends, like I have friends all over the world. And like who can say that? I don't know, but like it's just crazy to have so many amazing people by your side and who you've met through recovery and getting to share that bond is really, really special. So,
Yeah, when we started the episode, you had said I wanted to create a life that I didn't want to escape from, and you very much have done that. So I think that is amazing. I love that so much.
thank you.
Well, we have made it to the lightning round of our show. This is a fun get to know you because my listeners get very invested in you after they hear the stories. So the first question is you're given three options. You have to pick one. Would you shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive?
So I was listening to these questions on your other episodes and I'm like, can I choose none?
A few people have. A few people have. You know, Justin Mosley from Recovery Elevator, he was so
Yeah.
cute when I asked him. He was like, I choose all three. All three. Sign me up.
Yeah, I'm like, I hate flying, so skydiving is out. There's
Okay.
no way I'm jumping out of a plane. Bungee jumping, I feel like kind of goes hand in hand with that because it's
Yeah.
like heights and falling from the sky. So I'm gonna go sharks, even
Okay.
though I'm terrified.
That's what you're doing, girl. All right. Number two, you're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
Okay, it's really hard because I love music. So I am just gonna have to go with The Time Has Come, which is by Pretty Lights, clearly. But it's a very calming, like soothing song. So if I'm
Okay.
gonna hear it every day for the rest of my life, that's what it's gonna be.
Yeah, it needs to be something calm and not like jarring. You know, so
Yeah.
one of my guests was going to use like Regulators Mount Up, and I was like, that's fine, but you would get so sick of that song.
Yeah.
Number three, what is your favorite Disney movie?
I'm gonna have to go Mulan.
Oh, I love it. Love that
Mhm.
one. I've heard that
You
one a few
should.
times.
All the
Okay.
way. Yeah.
Love it. Number four, what is something you're obsessed with?
Music. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like my life kind of revolves around music now. Like it's always, when's the next show? When's the next ticket drop? Like maybe that's my new addiction. I don't know.
It's crazy to me how music can literally change your mood in an instant, you know, like the
Mhm.
power it has over our brains. And I've talked about this before on Justin's episode, actually, but an Alzheimer's patient will lose every part of their memory. The last thing to go is music in their brain. And I don't know, I think that is some symbolic for something, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's incredible. I don't know what we would do without it.
Yeah. I'm going to have to check out this band, Pretty Lights. I've heard you talk about them, and now I want to listen to them.
I'll have to send you some songs.
Do they ever come to Atlanta?
Yeah, actually. So they took a hiatus for like 5 years, and on their first tour back, they did an Atlanta stop.
Okay, cool.
That was in 2023.
Okay, cool. All right, last question. Number five. What does freedom mean to you?
For me, it just means being able to do anything and everything I've ever wanted without anything holding me back. No longer have these chains tied down to drinking. And it's just being able to do me and live authentically like how I want to live.
Yeah. I love what your friend told you. I honestly think that's like the best compliment someone can
Yeah.
give you is, you know, you're authentically you and you're thriving in that. You know, you're not wearing these fake masks, you know?
Yeah, I've put all the masks down. It's just me. Like what you see is what you get. And yeah, it's amazing.
You've put the mask down, stomped on them, and lit them on fire.
Yeah, exactly. Rebellion.
Rebellion. Yes, to bring it back to the quote. I love it so much. I can't thank you enough for coming on. You know, I've known you for so long, even though we don't live in the same state. I've kept up with you and your story, and I've always wanted the best for you. And to see you now, it just makes me teary. I'm like a proud older sister.
And that's so funny because I like feel the same way, like vice versa, because
Yeah.
I've also kept up with you and like, especially all the athletic stuff you're doing and just you're an inspiration to me in many ways for those kinds of things and nursing and all of this stuff. And we have very similar paths as the way our lives have kind of like laid things out. And so it's just nice to know that I'm not alone in that sense, but also that we have so many things in common. I can really look up to you too. So
Yeah, absolutely. Those connections, girl, they're everything, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, girl, thank you again from the bottom of my heart for sharing your story. It's going to help so many people.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful to be here.
All right, bye, girl.
Bye.